Prof-It fans, welcome to the J-Wittz Q&A. Since I was kind of running out of stuff to talk about while we're moving from last format to this one, and Battle Roads don't start until the end of September, I decided that I would answer any question that you guys decided to post on my last video. So, without further ado, here's my answers to most of your guys' questions. Now remember, I couldn't get to everybody, so don't feel like it's a personal attack or anything if I couldn't get to your question, but there's only so much time, and a lot of the questions are either a little repetitive or ones that could just be answered on a form if it's just deck advice. So, let's get to it. VY Suckin asks, my friends and I have just obtained 4 Mesprits. Do you suggest we drop them? Dropping Mesprits. Now, that sounds like a really good idea. In fact, I'd say, if you got a Mesprit in general, I would suggest that you drop it. Save me theme song.
You're Reggie Rocket with my nonsense and hopeless Poke projects. You won't stop till you're about to the top with all the hot tips. Hit with the metagame train, the reigning top chicks at the top of his game, and you can't hit on top this. You want the best tricks? I suggest you Prof-It. You want a Mesprit? I suggest you Prof-It. Once we started rolling, you know you can't stop it. Let's go and get some lessons from J-Wittz and Prof-It. Yeah.
LWC47 asks, are you continuing Prof-It Card of the Day? Well, to answer your question, LWC, I guess I should. I kind of promised that I'd have a Prof-It Card of the Day episode every week and kind of just discontinued it. In fact, when I was reviewing all the different legendary dog legend cards, I didn't even get to the 3rd one. I guess the way things are going with Prof-It, I'm pretty slow at getting my updates weekly anyways, so it's going to be tough to produce Card of the Days all the time, but I'll definitely keep it in mind for you and try and produce some if I find that there's an interesting card to talk about that I really didn't mention in an episode yet. For example, I should probably do a Card of the Day on the Smeargle from Undaunted because it's extremely good and I didn't even mention it at all. So, in the future, I'll kind of make sure to put a Card of the Day episode out every once in a while, but I wouldn't expect them all the time. To Project Zero asks, what inspired to dedicate yourself to making videos for YouTube, and what keeps you interested in the game and making videos? Well, like a lot of things that interested me in getting back into the Pokemon card game, Renee interested me in starting to produce this show for YouTube. You see, she was always watching videos of different kinds of YouTube celebrities like Ray William Johnson and Shay Carl and CTFXC, all those kind of guys, just people who either, they blog about their daily lives or they do reviews or commentary, and she suggested that I make my own show. Well, originally I was going to do music, but after seeing all the people that already produced some really good original music, and the fact that I didn't have any recording equipment at the time to make cool music videos, I decided to opt for something that I kind of knew a little bit better, like Pokemon. As for why I keep playing the game, it's just because it's fun. And I mean, it helps a little bit to be pretty good at the game and have a competitive edge over other players, but in general, it's just because you meet a lot of really cool people. The game's a great stress reliever, it's a great way to kill time, it's an awesome hobby. It's just fun. J24 Quinn asks, hey JWittz, what do you think of the Red Steel deck? Well, Jay, I have no idea what the Red Steel deck is, but I give Red Steel 1 a 5 out of 10, and Red Steel 2 an 8 out of 10. Yeah. Lego Sith 59 asks, hi JWittz, I was wondering what is your worst record in a pop event and your best record in a pop event. Well, my worst record ever is 1-3 and then drop at the first city championships that I played in back in 2008. It's a pretty good story, so here it goes. I started learning all the best decks to play with by researching Pokegym when I was getting back into the game. The only problem was I wasn't exactly sure what the metagame was, I didn't really know what the best techs were, so I kind of just looked up on the list, saw the deck that was winning the most, and I took it. At the time that was Gengar Dusknoir, both from Stormfront. Game 1 I ended up beating a Dusknoir Luminion in a pretty close match. Game 2 I lost to a Machamp because I forgot to put my prizes out. Game 3 I lost in a pretty close mirror match, but I ended up losing it because I forgot to put Unknown G in my deck. which is a really important tech at the time when the two biggest attackers both have attacks that have to do with placing damage counters across the board. In Game 4, I ended up getting what I call the Nightmare Hand. After a decent shuffle, I started with Ghastly and 6 Psychic Energy. I'm not even kidding. Then the next 2 turns I drew Psychic Energies. So I ended up losing in like 3 turns, and it was horrible. But I guess that's what happens. It's never happened to me like that again, and I hope it never does. So yeah, in the end, ended up going 1-3. The one person I did beat happened to be Puka. He went on to win Nationals that year and get 3rd at our Nationals the next year. So, I guess it was a pretty solid win if you had to have 1 out of 3. The reason I dropped was just because our entire event was shut down by some electrical problems, and they had to do all the pairings by hand. So it was like half an hour between each round. It was like 11 o'clock and it was a school night, so I had to get back. Best event ever? You guys all know that. That's my regionals win last year. I ended up going, I don't remember exactly, 10-2, 11-2, something like that. It's the biggest event I've won, and the only thing bigger than that would either be Nationals or Worlds, so let's hope that I top it next year, I guess. Doom Scissor asks, do you play on Red Shark at all? To answer you, Doom Scissor, yes I do. I play in Red Shark and Apprentice. I prefer Red Shark just a little bit over Apprentice, but they both got their pros and cons. I play them about equally. I don't really play in any specific servers or anything, though. Usually when I'm looking for games, I just either call up or send a message to some of the better players I know and ask them if they want to test out a game. I test like crazy online right before states and regionals, so if you're looking to test a game around that time, just send me a message and I'll let you know if I'm free to play a game. SFK301 asks, what is your personal favorite Pokemon card? Or top 3 or whatever. Well, favorite Pokemon card. It's actually a pretty hard decision to make, so I'll just pick a favorite old school card and a favorite new school card. My favorite old school had to be the Electabuzz from base set. It was a big part of Haymaker, and while it had a lot of trouble with Hitmonchan, once Scyther came out to balance Hitmonchan, more Electabuzz was being played, and I felt like it was just a really solid card. It had 1 for 10 or Paralyze, and it had 2 for possibly 40. He was just a solid card. It's one of my favorites. My favorite deck that I ever ended up playing later in the game, like 2008, was Regigigas. It was a lot of fun to have a really huge tank Pokemon and keep a power lock going the whole game, so if I have to pick a favorite current card, it's Regigigas. Macro2992 asks, can you please make a video talking about how to get cards and collect and how to start out at Pokemon? Well, believe it or not, Macro, I've actually developed a script for about 12 to 13 episodes for beginning players. It teaches you how to play the game, best places to get cards, how to start out at tournaments, and it's going to be a kind of mini-series or a series attached to Prof-It. I'm not exactly sure what to call it, maybe just how to play Pokemon, but it's going to be connected to Prof-It and it'll be kind of a bridge. See, my show right now isn't really accessible for somebody who hasn't played the game before. They're not going to really understand all the advanced strategy. So, down the line, I'll make my own set of videos to teach players how to play and finally get up to the level where they can understand Prof-It. Tradax asks, that's hard to say. Tradax asks, will Vileplume really be that big of an impact? My answer to you, Tradax, is yes. Now, I can't really vouch for any of the hundreds of decks that say, oh, they're going to tech in a 101 Vileplume and this and that, but a really solid deck that I've used it with is running Spiritomb, Gengar Stormfront and Gengar Level X, and Vileplume. This way you've either got Ghastly locking trainers, Spiritomb locking trainers, or Vileplume locking trainers, and then you can use Gengar Stormfront's attack Poltergeist for a huge amount of damage when your opponent has a bunch of trainers in their hand. The one problem, of course, is Dialga GX, but that's what you use Gengar X for. It kind of levels down Dialga, then they're back to not being able to use trainers, and you can maybe turn the game around. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's been proved to be a popular deck in Japan, and SP is a huge problem in our metagame, and I'm really thinking that it's going to be a good play for Battle Roads. Beyond that, I can't really guess, but I'm going to say that it is going to be a really big part of our metagame. Neke Power asks, a little question I wonder about. How tall are you actually? After I saw some pics of you at Nats, I thought you was very tall. Well, Mecha Power, I is very tall. I'm about 6'4". I guess, being filmed from the camera waist up, you really can't tell. Maybe it's how long my legs are, I don't know. All I know is, aside from asking for a J-Wittz card, I had no idea how tall you were, was probably the number one thing people said to me at Nationals. Pokebert1 asks, which deck have you never played, would you like to play once? And, which deck will you take to Battle Roads? Well, believe it or not, Bert, I've never played Luxchamp. In fact, I had the whole thing assembled and brought to Missouri States, and I ended up taking it apart last minute to put together a deck that I was more familiar with, Flygon Machamp. Well, little did I know, the entire field was a bunch of Gardevoir Gallades and Curse-Gars, and I ended up playing 4 of them and doing horrible. So, I really do regret never playing Luxchamp, and after that I ended up getting introduced to Sableye and never really wanting to switch over. I'd say for Battle Roads, I'll probably end up taking some variation of Luxchamp since it just seems to be so good and I owe it to myself to play it at least once. Doffloff asks, what's your favorite Pokemon, and do you know another good card for a Shuppet deck other than Mr. Mime? Well, to answer your first question, it's a pretty tough call. I've got a lot of favorites, some of them stranger than others, but the ones that are consistently at the top of my list are Blissey, Regigigas, Ditto, and Scyther. It's a pretty strange group, but those are just the ones that I like. To answer your second question, if you're asking for a counter to beat a Shuppet deck, just run any kind of Trainer Lock deck and they can't do anything. That other deck that I was talking about earlier, Vileplume, Spiritomb, Ghastly, Gengar, that'll beat Shuppet really, really easily. If you're asking for a new thing for Shuppet to put in front instead of Mr. Mime, there isn't really one. You can try Spiritomb, but if you start with it, you're going to do horrible. Or you can just try putting up your Crobats. Either way, because of all the Trainer Lock, Shuppet isn't going to be a very good deck anymore anyways. Raichu Pokefan asks, question, who or what got you introduced to the game? Well, if you're talking about the first time back in 1998, that was just kind of the thing at our school. Everybody collected Pokemon cards, had huge binderfuls of stuff, packs were inflated up to like $5, $6 each. It was just a huge craze, everybody had Pokemon cards. I guess me and my friend, we just decided to pull out the rule book and read it, since nobody really knew how to play the game. We ended up figuring it out, being one of the few people who actually did know how to play, and then we ended up finding leagues at Toys R Us and such. So, I guess myself introduced me to the game by reading the rule book. It was a really simple game, and even at like 7, 8 years old, it was a pretty easy one to pick up and teach myself. Now, talking about later, like 2007, 2008, when I ended up getting back into competitive play, that would be my girlfriend Renee. We were just really big fans of the games, we ended up getting Diamond and Pearl, and then just at a store we saw some starter decks at Walgreens, decided to pick them up for fun. I think I talked about that in episode 1, but that's why I ended up playing again, that's why I'm here today. Keith Nero99 asks, hey Josh, I love the show. My question for today is, do you think Uxie Level X's trade-off and Uxie's setup can replace Claydol's Cosmic Power due to the rotation? Well, Keith, it's kind of impossible for Uxie to replace Claydol when Uxie was already in a format where Claydol existed. Well, here are your options. You can either run like a straight speed-based draw, just run a bunch of unknown R's for retire, a bunch of Pokedex, Pokedrawers, just try and draw as many cards as you can in one turn. It's not going to be the same as the consistency Claydol gave you, but you can at least have a fast deck that way. You can try something like Dodrio, which lets you draw a card every turn, but it's just not consistent, it's not as many cards. You can do Ninetales, who pretty much already replaced Claydol in Fire decks anyways, so that's a solid option if you want that same Claydol feel. Otherwise, you're going to have to set up slower with Spiritomb, like the old Gardevoir Gallade and Curse-Gar decks, but it should still be solid. Claydol's gonna be missed, but we'll find a way to move on. Alright, this next question's a big one, and I've probably gotten this request over 100 times, and that's not even an exaggeration. This is from everyone, really. What was the deck list for your regionals winning Sableye? Or your national Sableye, or just any Sableye list you've ever made, J-Wittz? That's the question. Well, guys, here's a couple of problems I've had with the bunch of requests that I've had for asking for my Sableye list. The first is, everybody asked right after I won regionals. A lot of them without even a congratulations. I got an email that was specifically notorious. It just said, Sableye list pulls PLZ. There's not really any tact to that, and I obviously didn't send the list to anyone. In fact, I don't think I sent anyone the card-for-card list. For the people who asked some specifics about the deck, like how it worked or how it functioned, I was happy to answer those questions, but in a format where you play regionals, battle rows, and then nationals, all the exact same format, no new sets added, there's no real incentive for me to release publicly or somebody, what my list was, especially after winning regionals. Now, a lot of problem, just from everybody asking is, if you watch the video, I mention every single card that's in the deck. So if you just, take out a notebook, just write down notes, he mentioned Sableye here, he mentioned Initiative here. You'll have every card that's in the deck, just not how many of each that's played. So all you really have to do is test from there, and as you guys know, I usually don't release deck lists anyway. I usually release like a 50-card skeleton of a list so that you can tech out everything else. So the next time I talk about one of my tournament reports, just write down each card I use and test the numbers yourself, put a little creativity into it. The only real inventive things I ever did with Sableye were, in regionals I ran a bunch of Expert Belt, which won me a bunch of games, but I took them out by nationals. They were inconsistent cards. And I think I might have possibly been the first big Sableye player to run Toxicroak G promo in his list, but other than that, the list was pretty standard. As far as it goes, and if you're going to ask for somebody's list, at least do it with a little bit of tact, and if they've already got a video showing all the cards they used anyway, just do a little field work, try and figure that out. And the last question, I know, I'm sorry, I couldn't get to everybody's, but at least this one's pretty good. Swim with RT asks, J-Wittz, in all caps, when are you going to do your top 20 worst cards printed episode like you mentioned in episode 1? Been dying to see that one. Well, after getting this question, and then later looking at Jason Klasinski's status and seeing how he's doing a top 50 cards of all time, I was kind of inspired to start putting together my list of the bottom 20. If you've been looking at some of my posts on either the forums or my Twitter, Facebook, I think even the website, I've actually been starting to compile my own list of the top 20 worst cards of all time, and that's going to be our next episode. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of silly antics, should be a really long episode, and it's definitely one that I think you guys should look forward to. So yeah guys, that's the JWittz Q&A video. I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question, but I'll be sure to have more of these down the line, so if I didn't answer your question this time, maybe I'll answer it later. Also, if you ever got a question, just send me an email at jwitz25@gmail.com, through a message on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and I'll do my best to get to it. If I don't answer you for a while, I'm probably busy, so try and send your question again and I'll understand that it's important if I've read it already and haven't had time to answer. As always, thanks for watching Prof-It, and tune in next time for my top 20 worst cards of all time. Peace!
Today's information-filled Prof-It episode was brought to you by Stop2Shop.com, and they've got a special offer for you. If you use the coupon code PROF-IT, all caps, you get 15% off your full order. Stop2Shop.com offers a wide selection of decks, packs, single cards, sleeves, and they offer $1.99 shipping for up to 100 single cards. Be sure to check them out for your Pokemon card needs, and thanks for sponsoring Prof-It.